Okay, good evening. Today we're going to discuss about slavery, Avdus. Of course, we know it from the Torah, but a little bit also link it back to current halachas. The Torah clearly does not want to have Jewish slaves. The Chazal tell us that it says in the Posuk in Bahar, Kili b'nei Yisrael avodai heim. So basically, the Torah says that instead of being slaves, you should not be slaves to Jews, because by definition, you are my slaves, and I don't want you to be slaves to other people. So that's kind of, it's not going to be an Isur Aseh, but it's clearly not Rotzon Hashem. Question is, why is it not the Isur Aseh, but it's clearly not the Rotzon Hashem? It's only in very extreme cases, like if somebody stole and he doesn't have the money, or somebody is really desperate for money. In that case, he can sell himself. But generically speaking, the Torah is trying not to have Jewish slaves. Even there is a whole Aseh or Lois Aseh, if you want, according to the Rambam and going to go in, it's an Aseh, is to redeem a Jewish slave that is in the hands of a non-Jewish owner. So it is really, Torah tries everything to say that we should not make that sure that we are not going to be slaves to nobody, but that we are actually b'nei choirin. And this is a posuk. Now, halachically, there are even today, there are questions if a person is allowed to kind of sign a contract which binds him forever, or at least longer than 6 years. So the Aruch HaShulchan, there's a whole siman in Shulchan Aruch about Avdus, because in the time of the Shulchan Aruch, there were still slaves, there were still Evet Kanani. He speaks a little about the Evet, he speaks a little bit about the Evet Ivri, but that's already because today, Bisman Hazeh, there are not really all the halachas of an Evet Ivri, because according to the Rambam, Evet Ivri is only shaykh when there is Yovel. So there is an Yored there. In Shulchan Aruch Yored there, Reish Samach Zayin. It's a siman where you have all the halachas of an Evet. And in there is a little bit of a discussion about whether or not if somebody that is an Evet and has a contract, if he can stop the contract early, because it's the discussions about the schir, somebody who is working for a certain amount of time and amount of money. Sorry. Yeah, I think I have to change a little bit the infrastructure here. So the Aruch HaShulchan has something very, very interesting. And he says that Lefi ma shegozra Torah, that the Mahaitam osur lepoil o melamed oisoif el haskir atzmo lios bebeis balabais yoiser migimel shonim. So a person is not allowed to have a contract which binds him more than 3 years. The besochir motzino bakro dehem gimel shonim. So there is a posuk in Yeshaya, and in the posuk in Yeshaya, it says very clearly that a sochir, somebody who works for a certain salary, he is only working ba'ato diver Hashem leimoir b'sholoi shonim kishnei sochir v'nikloch void moyov. So it clearly says that you will wait, the Rebbeinu Shalom will wait 3 years, like the years of a sochir, and v'nikloch void moyov. So it seems that the sochir is only working as a contract for 3 years. And then there is another posuk, Kichoy Omar Hashem Elai Ba'oid Shono Kishnei Sochir V'cholo Kol Kavoid Geido. So there it says 1 year. So the Mari Karo says, Elo Amar Belahas Kiratzmo Ein Omar B'Yoser Al Sholosh Shonim V'Amar Mit Eino Poches Mishono. So it's like the Torah is telling us that one should only commit a working contract only for maximum 3 years and minimum 1 year. So he says, so the Aruch HaShulchan says that we see that the person should never sign a contract of more than 3 years. Excuse me, can you please put yourself on mute? Yeah, everybody. I'll see if I can do it myself. Yeah, I'll have to check that. Probably I can mute all. Okay, I see. So he said here clearly that the person should not sign a contract of more than 3 years. Others are saying that we should not do a contract of 6 years, אבל הרחוב משונים מזכירים עצמו, והטעם דכסיב בעבד עברי, כי משונו סוכר עבדכו 6 שונים. So because he worked as a sochi for 6 years, and therefore לכן ב6 שונים שם עבד עולו. The moment that a person signs a contract for 6 years, he becomes an עבד, לא בפוחוס. ויש חולקים בכל זה דווקא עבד, שאינו יוכל לחזור בו אוסור, אבל בשכיר שיוכל לחזור בו אין זה עבד. ולפיכך, he says, he finishes off the אורך השולחן, לפיכך יש רבונים, they used to be רבונים שאין מקבלים כסב רבונוס, they were not מקבל כסב רבונוס על 6 שונים. That is longer than 6 years. I think today probably they would appreciate it to be as long as possible. But in any case, he says here that at the time of the Aruch HaShulchan, he says that they were not mekabel the ksav rabonus al 6 shonim. Yes, mekabel al yoser migibel shom somewhere even machmir, and they said I'm only mekabel my job to do as a rov only for 3 years. And they also added on that even within the 3 years, I want to be able to close off the time, gedin poil, like a din of a poil. So, and then he continues what happens if they want to stop, if somebody wants to stop, and how he has to pay back the money, etc. So you see very clearly that even today, these whole halachos of avdus is something which the Torah does not want. Torah does not want that a person should commit himself for a longer period of time, and this is considered as an eved or a sochir. And it's not clear why the sochir is 3 years or whether it is 5 years or 6 years or 1 year. It seems to be a little bit, the Gemara is not very clear about that. It's more the Rishonim, it's more Tosfos, and from that Tosfos, a lot of halachos have been learned from that. So it's in the first perek in Bob Metzia, I think it's Daf Yud, there is a bit of a hint about these halachos, but you see very clearly that even today, there are some repercussions. I don't know today halachically how when a person becomes an employee for indefinite time, what is the halachic, whether or not he is allowed to do that or not. I guess that the reason why he would be allowed to is because he does not live in the house of his owner, but he just goes to the place of work, and in that case he can have an indefinite contract, a timeless contract. But if he would be working as a maid or as a servant in a house, then there is a problem eventually to make a contract. But I'm not a rov again. But in any case, this just wanted to let you know. There is also something very interesting, is that there is a correlation between the 6 years, the 7 years that a person is allowed to keep a choiv, keep a loan. So after 7 years, so in the 7th year, in the years of Shemitah, a person has to be meshamet the choiv. There is a very interesting Ramban, which I found in the Kisvei Ramban, Mosad Rav Kook, where you will find when he has a Tayag Mitzvahs, in the Chiluk Tayag Mitzvahs. So he explains that Lefi she'evet loive le'ish malva, this is a posuk in Mishlei, that a loive, somebody who borrowed money from a malva, then he becomes an evet to this malva, and on the 7th year, like an evet goes free, therefore also explains that the goy, you are allowed to continue and ask him the choiv. So the loan, he is allowed to continue and claim the choiv, but a Jew who borrows money, he has to, if he borrows money to somebody, and then after, when it comes to Shemitah, he has to stop. He is not allowed to continue and claim the choiv unless he brought a prusbul. But that's, he says, since it is similar than the evet, like an evet is also only allowed to be kept in his house for 6 years, and the 7th year he has to let go. So therefore, also a choiv. This is a similar halacha because it is also kind of an evet. When a person is a loiver, then he is an evet. And in general speaking, they say, and especially Rav Kook speaks a lot about that the idea today is that we are all avodim at some point. We are all dependent on people. And so whether you know, even when you want to make a simcha, you're dependent on the traiteur to make the simcha, on the hall to rent you the hall. So basically always dependent on other people. And the Torah, what the Torah says is that the highest dependency that a person can have, which is an avdus, the Torah says this is not allowed to do more than 6 years. And for an Evet Knani, then we have it full time, but it's also regulated. There's a lot of halachas to protect his kind of the way that you can treat him. There is all kind of halachas. Shulchan Aruch also brings down all kind of halachas of the way that you can treat an Evet. But in generally speaking, the Evet is only an example of the highest form of commitment, but it goes down to even smaller forms of commitment, like we said just now, like taking Rabbonos, which is also the same din as an Evet. At the end of the day, you are committing yourself to a community, and therefore you kind of become an Evet. So it's just to show you that the halachas of an Evet is similar, is not was only at the time, but it has progressed also in the current time. What is especially interesting is that here, according to the Ramban, the Evet goes out in the Evet goes out also on Shemitah, which seems to be saying here because he compares the halvoah to the avdus. So he says an halvoah is like an avdus, is like a slavery, because you become a slave from the one that you borrowed to you, and therefore he says that it's similar to how when the halvoah you're going, it goes free, the halvoah is rendered nil when it comes to Shemitah, so too the avdus will go, the Evet will leave on Shemitah. And as you might know, I'm sure you know that the Evet is not going out in Shemitah, but the Evet, it's normally we learn that the Evet goes, whenever he starts a contract to become an Evet, he has 6 years to work from that moment on, and the 7th year is the 7th year of his working contract, but not on the Shemitah. But there is a Targum Yonis Ben Uziel in this week's Parsha, which seems to be also going against the Chazal, and he says, and Bishnin Dishmitzo over Simonayo, when it comes to the year of Shemitah, over Simonayo, over Yuvlo, over Moses Rabbonayo, or Furkan Kaspo. So these are, he explains which are the ways that a person can, Omo can go free. So he also says Bishmitze. So he holds that the year of Shemitah, an Evet goes free. So this we don't know in Chazal. There is no way in Chazal that this is true, but there is somehow in the Targum Yonis Ben Uziel, and also in the Ramban, on the Tariaq, in the Kisvei Ramban, he also mentions that an Evet goes free on the year of Shemitah. That is not at all in any of the Gemaras or any Braises that we have seen so far, that claims that an Evet is always going free he has 6 years and the 7th year, just counting from the first year of his contract. But in any case, I just wanted to bring you that element. It's quite an interesting element, also something I didn't know and discovered here when I was preparing this year, is something that we see that even a normal contract of an employee has got kind of implications, the halachas that we've seen as an Evet Ivri, that even some Rabbonim refuse to have long-term contracts because it would seem as if they are Evet Ivrim for longer than 6 years. So this is the first part. The second part I wanted to share with you is there is a little mistake that I already spoke about that, I think, a few years ago, and I will share it with you. That was so this week's Parsha, we have something very interesting halacha. It says L'sia acherabim lerois, l'sav ne'alriv lintois, and then it says acherabim nehatois. What does it mean? It means that you should not go according to the majority. This is talking to Dayonim. If Dayonim are sitting in a court case and they are done, if they are done, the din is whether to kill somebody or not. So this is what we call lerois. So he was Mechal Shabbos, or he ate Chazer, and we have to give him Malkus, and we don't know whether it's true or not, whether we should give him Malkus or not. And so there is, how do? We have to vote. All the Dayunim have to sit together, and they need to vote whether or not he is Chayiv or Potu. And so the Torah says, you should not go according to the majority in order to kill. But then the Pasuk finishes off, but you should go according to the majority. So basically the Gemara asks, there is a stira, there is a contradiction. Beginning of the Pasuk, it says, don't go according to the majority. And at the end of the Pasuk, it says that you should go after the majority. So how can it be? So the Gemara says that when you are counting the Dayonim, you need a bigger majority in order to give a punishment to somebody than when you want to say that he is potu. So how does it work? So when, for example, 12 judges condemn a plaintiff while 11 judges are acquitting him, so we don't condemn him. Why? Even though there is a majority, but we only majority of one, that's not enough. But apparently you do need a majority of at least two, which is 14 judges that condemn and 12 judges that acquit, and then we can condemn him for whatever punishment that would mean. But however, on the other side, if 12 judges acquit and 11 judges condemn, then we acquit. So basically, in order to kill or to give a punishment to somebody, you do need to have a majority, but the majority needs to be of at least two. So when I've learned that in the Chinuch, the Sefer HaChinuch, then I have something very interesting. So that brings it down. So he says, "Avol k'sheyeh acheya b'shnayim, afilu l'rois matin al pihem." He says, "Uvemechilta." It says at Yosro letoivo al pi eidechot u'lerois al pi shnayim. So here it says, instead of saying dain echot al pi dain echot u'lerois al pi shnayim, he says eidechot. And that seems to be a mistake. And indeed, in the new prints, the later prints that I found, they do write it and they say it's a mistake. So basically, there is a print. So I thought, okay, interesting. There is a print mistake in my chinuch. And I looked in the black Minchas Chinuch, so the new kind of the other version, which has a nice Minchas Chinuch around. They had exactly the same mistake. So at Yosel Teva al pi eidechot ulero al pi shnayim. So I was very surprised to see that word eid there. So it seems that this mistake was apparently in an original chinuch, and they just printed the original chinuch as it was, and both print, both the Israeli and the American print, they both had the same mistake. However, when I learned the Yereim is a completely different sefer that came out. This is the print that was in Warsaw just before the war, that they found in I think they found it in Paris, and so they printed out this new Yereim, and there it says exactly the same thing. Okay, it's at look at Yosel Tov at Yosel Lero at Yosel Tov al pi eidechot at Yosel Tov al pi shnayim. So what does it mean here? What does it mean? How can it be? So we have already in the Chinuch, and we have also already in the Yereim. So Yereim, instead of saying dayan echot, he says eid echot. So that's already something which is a little bit very, very mysterious. And then my brother, he said to me, and I don't know how he found it, but he showed me that in the Mishnayos of the Yerushalmi, the same Mishnayos which we have, but apparently in the print of the Mishnayos in the Yerushalmi, which I also have, and there he says, so exactly the same thing in Daf Ches in Sanhedrin. I have it here as well, but I showed it to you. So in the Mishnayos in Yerushalmi, it's added on the word eid, while in the Mishnah that we have it in our Bavli, it says al pi echot. So very strange. So this mistake apparently has spread around, and we don't know exactly where the beginning of the mistake, probably in the Mishnayos in Yerushalmi, that it continued. And then I found as well in the Yalkut, it says the same thing, that so we see here something very strange. So where he should be saying dayan echot, he says he eid echot. Again, there is nothing that can be related to the edim, right? There is no at Yosro Letoivo Loro al pi edim. There is no such a din normally. So these we're talking about dayonim. So we find in the Mishnah in Yerushalmi, we find the printing mistake. We find the same in the Yereim. We find the same in the Chinuch, the two versions of the Chinuch. And then we also find in the Yalkut Shimoni, who also brings down the same mistake. So it's a very weird thing, which needed to be a little bit more investigated. And so what I have found is in the Mechilta. The Mechilta in the Chumash and there on this week's Parsha, the Mechilta says something very interesting. So he says that that Talmud Lo Malusan al Riv, that he asks, Shomei ani yehi chayv, Talmud Lo Malusan al Riv, lo yisi achram lerois, omro teure, haroig al pi edim, haroig al pi matin. Like the Torah says to kill with edim, the Torah also says to kill with roiv. So you not only, how do we kill a person? We can only kill him with edim, and we also only kill him with a roiv bezdin. You have to have a roiv bezdin. A mute of bezdin is not good enough to kill. You have to have a majority of bezdin. Ma edim b'shnayim, like we see by edim, you need two. Af matin b'shnayim. So like this also, the majority that you also need a majority of two. So basically, if you want, the Chazal here are learning from edim, how many dayonim do I need to have more in order to be able to kill? So since I have two dayonim, which are in the majority, we can say that the same numbers, so for example, 12 against 10. So 10 against 10 is like disappearing, one against the other one. It remains two dayonim that are saying that he is chayev, and these two dayonim are enough in order to be able to kill. Like we have two edim that we can kill with two edim. So two we have to kill with at least two dayonim. So there is a limit we learn it from the din of edim that we need two dayonim to be a majority of two dayonim so that we kill with two dayonim, because all the other dayonim seems to be neutralized, because 10 say chayiv and 10 say potu, therefore they are zero, but there's two more who say chayiv, so since there were 12, so with 12, with two we are killing as we can kill with two edim. And so maybe this would mean indeed that this could be the explanation of why this mistake happened, because the two dayonim are actually coming from the limit from two edim. And so lo yatu yosral pi eid echot, not like we can't kill with one ed, therefore we need two edim. Similarly, not with one dain, but we do need two dayonim. Yeah. So that's the second part. The third part I wanted to explain two more dinim that we have in this week's parsha. There is one din which is very interesting. Treifa, we said by treifa that la kelef tashlichu noise. So I wanted to understand what is this la kelef tashlichu noise, because by the nevela it says that you should give it to a goy, or to sell it to a goy, or to give it to a ger toisha. So why is it the treifa bedavka you have to give it to a kelef? So Chazal say because a treifa, because the kelef when Klal Yisrael went out of Mitzrayim, they did not bark, and so therefore you should give it to the kelef. So the question is, but yeah, why a treifa to the kelef and a nevela is to the goy? I think I found maybe the answer, and I don't know what you if you like it or not, but I think I found an answer. Why does a Jew have a dog? Why do people have a dog normally in the times of Chazal? It is a dog was sleeping outside, and the idea was that he had to look after the sheep, after your cattle and the sheep, and so therefore you had dogs outside, and they were sleeping. The moment that they heard a wolf or anything that is coming out, they had to bark. And they had to alarm the owners, and they had to bark so that the animal, the predator, should actually be afraid and leave and run away. Now, when it happens that when you found one of your cattle, one of your sheep actually bosor basode treif, when you found it to be a treif in besode, in the field. It means, in other words, what happened here? It means that the dog did not do his job properly. So basically, he was supposed to wake up and to bark and to make ganze balagan. He did not do it. He was sleeping, and he was not a good. He did not do a good job. And so normally you would think that you'll have to punish him. And so what does the Torah tell you? No. So even though that he did not do a good job, I want you to be rachmim. I want you to have rachmonas on your own workers. It can happen that the dog does not do a good job, and therefore the Torah says, you should still throw it and you should still give it to the dog, although that he is the reason why this happened. But still, this is kind of a musar that the Torah tells us for the dog. And why does the dog deserve that? Because when we came out of Mitzrayim, also the dog did not bark. So the fact that he did not bark while he was protecting the sheep and your cattle, that's not a good enough reason, because we appreciate it when actually he did not bark against us when we went out of Mitzrayim. So this can be a nice explanation on the reason why is lakelev tashlichun oisom. There is another shot that I wanted to say on why do we say that we're not allowed to cook lo yisevashu gedi bechalev imoy. So there is a posuk which says lo yisevashu gedi bechalevim. I'm not going to go. I spoke already a few times about what does it mean. Is it meaning the cooking and the eating, and what does the Torah mean in general, and whether it is the reason I'm not allowed to cook so that I shouldn't come to eat, or because the Torah doesn't want me to eat, the Torah said not to cook even. So whether it's a gzeir or a knas, this is a whole shir that I gave already a few years ago. But today I just wanted to repeat a little thing that I've said already, that the reason why the Torah, that the poshet pshat of the lo yisevashu gedi bechalevim, the whole parsha that you have in Mishpotim is a parsha that has to do with what we call procrastination, with pushing off, with delaying things. The Torah says, not to delay. It says, lo yolin chelev chagi ad boiker, not to let it chelev till the morning. Lo yisbach al chometz dam zifri, that also not to be zoveach al chometz. Chometz is something that you have to wait for shem tichmetzenu. So it's an element of waiting. Reishis bikuri ad moscho tovi beis Hashem elokecho. The first of the fruit you should bring, not to wait for the better one, but already the first one that comes out you should bring. It says that 7 days the animal should be under his mother, and on the 8th day you should bring him as a korban. So you see, the whole parsha is about not procrastinating, not to push off and to think, I'll do it better, I'll wait for a better. No, you should do straight away. When you have something, you do it straight away. So lo yisevashel gedi bechalev imoy is also meaning that lo yisevashel comes from the word bishul, meaning to ripen, to make it more ripe. So not to ripen the gedi, the animal, bechalev imoy, with the milk of the mother. So you are thinking the Torah says 7 days you should be under the mother, and on the 8th day you should bring it. And this is one of the psukim in this week's parsha. So lo yisevashu gedi bechalev imoy, don't schlep it. So don't think that I will make it fatter. Lo yisevashu from bishul is meaning fattening, from becoming ripening. And this is not to ripen the behemoth, bechalev imoy, with the milk of the mother, but making it, but actually Torah says bring it straight away. Like the four mitzvahs which are in the same posuk, which are repeated again in Parshas Kisiso, lo yisbach al chometz dam zifri, lo yolin chelev chagiat boiker, and Bereishis bekur ad mosot tovi beis Hashem elokecho, and then lo yisvash gedi bechalev imoy. All the four have to do with procrastination, not to procrastinate, but to do. When the Torah tells you to do something, do it directly. That is the whole parsha. If you look it up now, if you want to look it up, you will see that the whole parsha, besides a bit on Shemitah between, but if you look a few psukim in the last last bits just before that, and the 4 mitzvahs that are in the same 2 psukim, you will find that this is all about procrastinating. So it's this is what the pshat is, and of course Chazal tell us no, the bishul means cooking together. So this is about the cooking, but as a pshat, the normal, the poshet pshat, it maybe it's an element of an issur against procrastinating, and not to wait more than 7 days, and in the 8th day to bring it, as it says mefurish in this week's parsha in the posuk. So we've seen 4 things. We've seen the idea of avdus, that it's even today the Torah knows that we have to be avodim. There have to be avodim to when we borrow money, we're becoming avodim to the malva. When we have a contract, we are an eved. And so the Torah says, as a Jewish nation, since avoda, you are my avodim, you are my slaves. I don't want you to be slaves. I want you to minimize the slavery, the feeling of a slavery, being bounded to anybody else. I want to minimize as much as possible. And so even today, halachically, there are some rabbonim that refuse to have a contract of unlimited time, but only maximum 6 years, others only 3 years, because a sochir is only 3 years. So they wanted to minimize it as much as possible, because we are avodim to Hashem and not to another human being. The second thing that we've seen is that the mistake in this week's parsha, also in the mistake in the Chinuch and in the Mishnah in Yerushalmi and in the Yalkut and also in the Yereim, that when you have to have 2 modayonim, it says the eid echot and not dain echot, and then we said that maybe the mistake can come from the fact that the limit that how do we know that we have to have 2 dayonim, maybe 3, because we learn it from edim. Like you kill with 2 edim, you also can kill with 2 dayonim. So you need 2 dayonim on top of the rest that are equal. So 12 against 10 means that there is a surplus of 2. 2 is enough, because like you can kill with 2 edim, you can also kill with 2 dayonim. Then we learned why we should give the treife to the dog and the nevela to the goy, is because the treife is the mistake is from the dog. The dog is actually the one that should be looking after your cattle and your sheep and everything, and he didn't do a good job in the night, and you found that animal. And so what you do is, Torah says, give it to the dog. It's kind of a sign of rachamim. Why? Because the Klal Yisrael, when the Klal Yisrael went out Mitzrayim, the dog did not bark, and so the Torah says to have some kind of rachmanis and forgiveness to your own dog. And then we saw that according to the pshat, it's about not to feed the animal in the milk of the mother, but to straight away bring it when it's ripe. To bring it not when it's ripe, when it comes to the 8th day, or whenever there is time to bring it, and not to schlep, not to procrastinate, since sometimes some people have this tendency, like myself sometimes, is to procrastinate. And this is exactly the whole parsha, which all the psukim, a lot of psukim that are in this end of this parsha of Mishpotim, is about procrastination. Lo yisa'acher, lo yolin, lo sizbach al chometz, reishis bikurei, ad mosro tovi. So you have a lot about that. So basically, this is also part of one of those psukim. Any questions?